A lot of what I went through, I relied on my dad for, and not having that voice, not having that like sense of like connection. Oh man, I was grateful. I didn't know how I was gonna get through this year, and so I first thank God because I was just telling Mr. Ed like I went through a lot internally, or psychologically, mentally, etc. That was tough, and so I had a village of like other 11 ladies that willed me in a lot of places I didn't think I was capable of going.
So I think that's what the message was for us is like, hey, great, we got the 6th seed. Our goal was to get back to the playoffs, but we probably could have given ourselves a little bit better of a chance.
Clark and Kelsey Mitchell just sent shockwaves through the WNBA. After the Fever got eliminated, these two didn't hold back. They dropped a statement so wild, it's got everyone wondering what's next for Indiana. You know what's crazier? Clark and Mitchell scored the exact same points per game this season, 19.2 each. But now it seems like there might not be room for both of them on the team. The drama is real, and we've got all the details right here. You know what's wild? The Indiana Fever just ended a 7-year playoff drought. That's right, for the first time since 2016, the Fever are back in the postseason.
And then on the flip side, I think it was an open eye for what 2024 was like, being in this world and being an athlete. And I applaud these young players like your Angel, your C Squares.
Where did the energy come from you personally? And then, why is it so important for you to put that out there for everybody who touches, Fever things?
Me, I think what's most glaring is, for one, the amount of eyes that was gained through this process, for seeing us play and seeing us represent what is the game.
But let's rewind for a second. Picture this. It's 2016, and the Fever are playoff regulars. They've been to the playoffs 12 straight years, including 3 trips to the WNBA Finals. They're led by the legendary Tamika Catchings, one of the greatest players in WNBA history. Then boom, Catchings retires and everything falls apart. The Fever go from contenders to cellar dwellers overnight. For 7 straight seasons, they're the league's punching bag. We're talking single-digit win totals.
At the same time, I felt like we could have done a little bit more to help it get back here for a Game 3, and that's what really kind of stunk about the whole thing. Like we talked about in our locker room after the game ended, where obviously people were pretty disappointed in the outcome. I think it gave us a taste of where we wanted to be, but I thought it gave us a taste of where we wanted to be, and that's exactly the message that Chrissy iterated throughout the locker room, and that our coaches kind of iterated when they talked.
Last place finishes and a revolving door of coaches and players. It was brutal for Fever fans. But this season, they flipped the script. And here's the thing, it's not just because of Clark. Don't get me wrong, Clark's been amazing. But this turnaround started last year with Aaliyah Boston and Nelisa Smith. Then you add Clark to the mix, and suddenly the Fever are cooking with gas. Check this out, the Fever clinched a playoff spot with 7 games left in the regular season. That's insane.
It's just that, you have to let this kind of burn inside of you and let it kind of bother you in a way that it's going to drive you through the offseason. How's it going to make you work? You got a taste of getting to the playoffs. Obviously, we haven't been there since 2016. To try to get it to a Game 3 to give our fans an opportunity to cheer us on here at home, and that's kind of what stunk about it. But next year we're wanting to be a top 4 seed. We believe we can build this place into a championship contender.
We're talking about a team that won 13 games total last year. Now they're sitting pretty with 17 wins and counting. This team went from bottom feeders to contenders in one season. But here's the real question, how did they do it? It's not just talent. Plenty of teams have talent. The Fever found something special this year. They've got chemistry, they've got fight, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. Every night they're out there proving the doubters wrong. And let's talk about those doubters for a second.
Yeah, it's definitely upsetting. I don't think nobody in our league should be facing any sort of racism, hurtful, disrespectful, hateful comments and threats. That's what I believe. That's what I'm going to do everything in my power to help this organization get there. But you got to let it, hurt you a little bit and really drive you throughout the offseason. Those aren't fans, those are trolls, and it's a real disservice to the people in our league, the organization, the WNBA. But there are a lot of really good fans, whether they've been fans for 20 plus years.
When the season started, nobody was picking the Fever to make the playoffs. They were supposed to be in the lottery again, hoping for another high draft pick. Instead, they're gearing up for a postseason run. That's the kind of turnaround that makes sports so exciting. But hold up, we can't talk about the Fever's turnaround without mentioning the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the two elephants? Clark and Kelsey Mitchell are lighting up scoreboards across the league. But here's what's wild, they're doing it in completely different ways. It's like watching fire and ice on the same court. The question is, can this unlikely duo keep the heat on when it matters most? You've got Clark, the rookie sensation, breaking records left and right. She's not just good, she's rewriting the WNBA history books. Clark's leading the league in assists, averaging a jaw-dropping 8.4 per game. And get this, she just shattered the single-season assist record for a rookie. But wait, there's more. She also set the record for most points by a rookie in a single season. Talk about making an entrance. Now let's talk about Kelsey Mitchell. She's been quietly putting up numbers for years, but this season, she's on another level. Mitchell's been on a 20-plus point streak that's got defenders scratching their heads. And here's the kicker, she's doing it with incredible efficiency. We're talking 46.8% from the field and 40.2% from beyond the arc. That's not just good, that's elite. Put these two together, and what do you get? The highest scoring backcourt in the WNBA. It's like they're playing a different game out there. Clark's got the flashy passes, threading needles that shouldn't even exist. Mitchell's got those quick drives that leave defenders in the dust. It's a 1-2 punch that's keeping opposing coaches up at night. But here's where it gets really interesting. Clark and Mitchell finished the season tied in points per game. Both averaged 19.2 points. But the way they get those points? Totally different. Clark's more of a volume shooter, while Mitchell's all about efficiency. It's like watching a sports car racing against a finely tuned classic. Both get you where you need to go, but the ride is completely different. And you know what's crazy? Opposing players are starting to take notice. They're saying things like, with Clark and Kelsey Mitchell, opposing teams have to pick their poison. Imagine being a defender and having to choose between stopping Clark's no-look passes or Mitchell's lightning-quick drives. It's a nightmare scenario. But here's the million-dollar question. Is their play style sustainable in the playoffs? Regular season success is one thing, but the postseason? That's a whole different animal. The game slows down, defenses tighten up, and every possession matters. Can Clark keep threading those risky passes when the stakes are higher? Will Mitchell's efficiency hold up under the bright lights of the playoffs? Then, while everyone's eyes were on Clark and Mitchell, something incredible was happening behind the scenes. The Fever started the season 2-9, looking like a team in disarray. Then, seemingly overnight, they transformed. What caused this dramatic turnaround? And can they keep it up when it matters most? You think Clark and Mitchell are doing this alone? Think again. Let's talk about Aaliyah Boston, last year's top pick. This girl is an absolute beast in the paint. She's averaging 12.4 points and 8.1 rebounds per game. That's not just good, that's game-changing. Boston's presence gives the Fever a whole new dimension. But here's the thing, early in the season, the Fever were struggling to find their rhythm. They started 2-9, and it wasn't pretty. Fans were worried, critics were laughing, and everyone was wondering if this experiment was going to crash and burn. It looked like another lost season for Indiana. So then something clicked. The role players found their groove, and suddenly the Fever were playing like a completely different team. Nalissa Smith started making big plays. The bench stepped up. It was like watching a caterpillar turn into a butterfly right before our eyes. You want to know how dramatic this turnaround was? Since that rough start, the Fever have gone 15-7. That's not just good, that's playoff basketball. They went from bottom feeders to contenders in the blink of an eye. It's the kind of story that makes sports so exciting. But here's what's really wild. This isn't just the Clark and Mitchell show anymore. The Fever have become a true team. Their coach talked about how their improved chemistry has been a key factor. You can see it in their fast breaks, their ball movement, the way they communicate on defense. It's like watching a well-oiled machine. Kelsey Mitchell said it best after their playoff elimination. There's no way around that. I've never been here. Caitlin has never been here. The good thing is that you can look at Wednesday and say, hey, see how much you can learn and take. So I'm proud of that improvement. That's the kind of attitude that turns good teams into great ones. But here's the million-dollar question. Is that improvement enough? The Fever clawed their way to the 6th seed, but now they're staring down the barrel of a matchup with the 3rd-seeded Minnesota Lynx. It's David versus Goliath time, folks. Are Clark and Mitchell ready to sling some stones? The Fever finished the regular season with a 17-16 record, securing their spot in the playoffs. But let's be real, they're not exactly favorites here. The Lynx have been here before. They know what playoff basketball feels like. The Fever, they're still trying to figure out where the locker room is. And you know what's even crazier? The Fever haven't beaten every team in the league yet. The Las Vegas Aces still have their number. It's like trying to climb Mount Everest, but you can't even make it up the local hill. How are they supposed to win a championship if they can't beat everyone? But here's the thing about the playoffs. Anything can happen. Remember when the Fever beat the New York Liberty and the Connecticut Sun? Those are top tier teams, and Indiana took them down. It's like watching a high school kid beat up the neighborhood bully. You didn't see it coming, but man, was it satisfying. This young Fever team might just be the wild card no one saw coming. They're hungry, they're fearless, and they've got nothing to lose. It's like they've been playing with house money all season. Why stop now? Caitlin Clark summed it up perfectly after their elimination. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface and I'm the one that's nitpicking every single thing I do. That's the kind of attitude that turns good players into legends. She's not satisfied with just making the playoffs. She wants more. And let's not forget about Kelsey Mitchell. She's been quietly putting up numbers that match Clark's, but with even better efficiency. It's like having two secret weapons instead of one. The Lynx might be prepared for Clark, but are they ready for Mitchell? The Fever's playoff games are drawing massive audiences too. Their first playoff game averaged 1.84 million viewers. That's the most watched playoff game since the 2000 finals. People are tuning in to see what this team can do. The pressure's on, but so are the eyes of the basketball world. The Fever's playoff journey isn't just a feel-good story, it's a statement. This team isn't satisfied with just making it to the dance. They're hungry for more, and they've got the talent to back it up. Clark and Mitchell are leading the charge, but don't sleep on the rest of the squad. This playoff run could be the start of something big in Indiana. We're talking about a new era of Fever basketball. Remember how they used to dominate with Tamika Catchings? Well, history might just be repeating itself. So, are you ready to watch these underdogs shake up the WNBA? The Fever are out to prove that their regular season wasn't a fluke. It's time to see if they can turn those doubters into believers when it matters most.